My agent at the time, David Eidenberg, fought for me for that role. Because ABC, of course, thought of me as Angela Bauer, as did so many people in the business for such a long time, which will lead us into what happened later with me in the theater. But people were, I mean, everybody said, that blonde, waspy girl on Who's the Boss? I don't think so. David said, this woman, and what had happened in the process, as I said to you, what Herb said to me, I can help you do that thing you want to do. So when AIDS hit, and the height of the pandemic was happening in the 80s, and a lot of our friends were dying, particularly my friends in the theater, and nobody knew what was going on. And Herb said, you have to speak up about this. Because what was happening was, it wasn't just that it was AIDS. What was happening in the country was that there were two presidents who never said the word AIDS. What was happening was that there was this level of homophobia in this country that nobody was talking about. And Elizabeth Taylor really spoke out because Rock Hudson was her friend. And Herb said, you got to stand up. And I knew that that was right and true. Just as he had told me I was being so angry in all those auditions. And just like he said, I wasn't getting it because of where I was coming from, he said, I knew he was right. And it was interesting because when I first heard Herb speak, he spoke at this Buckminster Fuller, who was the man who invented the geodesic dome. Bucky was somebody that I knew. And Herb also knew Bucky, and Bucky had this thing called World Game. I know I'm going off on a tangent, I'll get back. And I heard Bucky speak, and that was where I first met Herb, was at this event in New York City at Town Hall. And I met Herb there when Bucky was speaking, when Buckminster Fuller was speaking, and then he said to me, I'm coming back and I'm speaking at Bucky's World Game in a week. And World Game was something like, there's this thing called war games that people do in this country, and they all meet to talk about war and strategies and all that stuff. But Bucky said, we need to do a world game about how the world can work better. What can make the world better? Who can talk about people coming together and doing projects that will actually make the world a different and a better place? And so Herb was speaking there, and he was talking, and I heard this voice in my head. Now, I don't do that, but I heard this voice in my head that said, this is the person you're supposed to be listening to. And I said, oh, really? Okay. And he was talking about relationships and psychological, he was comparing Buckminster Fuller's geometry to psychological relationships. Fascinating. And so, how did I get on Herb and Bucky? Oh, we were talking about Ryan White. So when Herb speaks, I listen and I take it in and I process it. And things that I would never do or have the courage to do, he gives me the support and the courage to do. So when Herb said, this is important, and I said, okay, I'm scared to do this, but I know it's right. So I've been doing some work, giving some speeches, talking about the gay community and how I was watching the gay community deal with this pandemic that was happening and how our numbers were being decimated. We were going to funerals every week. We were going to the hospitals. We were burying our dead, giving a eulogy, and going back to the hospital because these young men who were gay and had AIDS, if their parents knew they had AIDS, they would disown them, and they were dying alone. And so it was this whirlwind of a time that was so difficult in the country and so problematic in relation to who are the people, who are you going to be? I've been doing a lot of this work, and David Eidenberg, the agent, said to them at ABC, she's already doing this work. She's also an actress, and she can do other parts. Give this to her, and she will make something of it, and the publicity for it, for you, for ABC, and for this pandemic, could be exponentially powerful. So they took a chance, and they gave it to me. And I met Ryan, and I met his mother, Jeannie, and we forged a relationship. And all of these things along the way, things that I've done or gotten or come to, have dramatically changed my life and have veered me into a different direction than I thought I was supposed to go. This goes back to that point of, am I listening? Mm-hmm. Will you take the chance on something that you have no idea what the outcome will be? I only wanted to do justice to Jeannie and to Ryan. And when ABC aired it, it was off the charts. And then they did another version of it where they had me talk about the special tribute, which was after Ryan had passed away. But I will tell you that I got letters from people who said that they would never watch me again because I had done this movie. And that I was supportive of people who had HIV and AIDS, and because I was supportive of the LGBTQ community. And I thought to myself, and people have asked me subsequently, did you think about the possibility that this would damage your life or your career? And I never thought about it. And when I got those letters and I looked at them and I said, good, don't watch me anymore. I don't need your energy. Your bigotry, your prejudice, the way you are in the world is your problem. That's not my problem. And it was one of the things that I used to talk about in the speeches that I would give to the gay community. I would say, you have to realize your being gay is not the issue. Their bigotry is the issue. And it's like, who do you want to be? We'll have this, one life to live, maybe, maybe not, maybe there is such a thing as reincarnation, maybe we do keep coming back, but you got this life now. And I do happen to believe that there is such a thing as reincarnation, but that's another topic. And not in an airy-fairy way. There's this real resonance of, like, when you meet somebody and you say, oh, I know you. You know how you have that with somebody. Anyway, so we have one life to live. This one, okay, we're going to do this one, and we're going to do this one well. Who do you want to be? Who are you going to be? And when I watch the gay community, and I watch them coalesce around caring for each other, creating organizations, opportunities for people, care for people, feeding of people, nurturing of the caretakers, and got no help from anyone, anywhere. Friends were storming the FDA to get the drugs. Terror was everywhere. Nobody knew what was happening. And I watched this community literally rise like the phoenix from the ashes and create itself into some magnificent, glorious community. And I said, that inspires me. I want to be that courageous. So when I got to do the Ryan White story, it gave me that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then I could speak more to it. And then I knew that I could in some way help, in whatever small way that I could, to help make a difference in the lives of my friends and people that I didn't even know. So that's when I got involved in things like the California AIDS ride. I would never get my tuchus on a bike and ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles for 7 days and sleep in a tent. That's not me. But my good friend Paul Manette had just died, and I did the ride for him. And then I became involved in the quilt. My friend Dan Pilata had created the AIDS ride. My friend Cleve Jones had created the AIDS Memorial Quilt. And you would go we did these unfoldings of the quilt in Washington D.C. at the National Monument. And when the quilt was laid out, you would see parents come to sit by the quilt of their child and weep because they had not had a rapprochement with their child at the end. They had shoved them away and were left with the sorrow and the grief because they had not made their peace in any way. They had not been accepting. They had not understood that their rejection was going to live with them for the rest of their lives. It was an extraordinary time. And so getting to have Jeannie and Ryan on the set was amazing. And then that's when I got to know Elton John, because Elton was impacted on by Ryan in the most profound ways. And to this day, he gives credit to Ryan to turning his life around. This was one very powerful young man, and guided, trained, taught by this extraordinary woman. And I remember being on the set one day, and I've told this story a lot, and you can use it or not, but I remember I got something in a much deeper way. He was on the set, and we were in Statesville, North Carolina, and somebody had come to interview him, and she said to him on the set, so, you know, people were very mean to you in Indiana when you were growing up, and they didn't want you to go to school, and that was the story about him having to move to another school and how they went to court to get him to go to school. And he said, oh yeah. She said, well, what would people do? And he said, well, they would spit at me and call me a fag. And you know how sometimes in your life you hear something and all the pieces that have been in different places just all sort of come together. And I said, this can't be this. My friends, my loved ones, those guys that took care of me when I was 11 years old at Ramblerny in New Hope, Pennsylvania, I have to say what is happening. So I began talking about homophobia. And that was all from starting with Herb and all of the friends in the hospitals and the Project Angel Food, cooking food for people, and hearing Ryan, and all of a sudden saying, wait, and doing the AIDS rides and the quilt and the giving the speeches, and that came into play later in my career, because I was now doing the thing I knew in my heart and soul that I was here to do. That I was here to talk about something much larger, but the platform had come from being known. So that, and had I not done the soap opera, had I not done the sitcom, I would never have had that kind of wide swath of an audience to speak to about these issues.